I also had this on as well. I had both.
Okay.
I don't know. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, I think you just need one.
I could also just switch it.
Let me just switch.
Yeah? You ready? Cool. You have a prayer book? You might want a prayer book. Ab, go get yourself a prayer book, honey. Get yourself a prayer book. Yep. Whew. Hi, everybody. The brave ones. We're good. All right.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to welcome those to the screen. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We're on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, malachei shalom, malachei elyon, malachei amlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Tzaytchem l'shalom, tzaytchem l'shalom. מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השערי, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך ברוך.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So many of us over the past few weeks have been through what I think is a quite stressful time. I don't know about you, but I haven't quite felt like this really since March of 2020. There's something about the period that we're in, about the anxiety that we're all carrying on our shoulders, that feels a little bit scary to all of us. And whether or not we're here in person or whether we're virtual, we feel it in so many pieces of our lives. Shabbat is the time to figure out a way to try to shed that, to hold the fact that you can't escape the world that you live in, but at the same time, to understand that there can be a reprieve, that although you might look out, make sure you're sitting far away from people, make sure you're wearing the right mask, that kind of constant anxiety and fear that you're carrying with you, try for 25 hours not to let it haunt you. And if you do that, if you make that effort, you'll be training yourself to not let it haunt you for the rest of that week as well. And so one of the things that gives us hope, that gives us joy, is the lighting of our Shabbat candles. As we see the candles twinkle and flutter, in a way it's supposed to bring us peace and joy, a feeling of wholeness, of menucha, of rest. And so, in honor of their B'nai Mitzvah, of 2 students who are becoming Bar and Bat Mitzvah this weekend, I want to call Cole and Abby up to be joined by their families to light our candles now. We're on page 2 and 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
All right, so why don't you each take one of these? We're on page number 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pori hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'achava uvratzo v'nchilanu zikara lema'aseh reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zetziat mitzrayim
Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinechaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai v'kodesh haShabbat.
Amen, Chaim.
All right, so you can take sips if you want.
Yes, indeed. Shkoach. All
right.
done.
Down. Congratulations. Can't
Mazel
wait for tomorrow.
tov to everybody. We continue our service, page 20. Please join us. We welcome Shabbat. We breathe her in together. Lecha dodi ligrat kalaya, yalalay, yalalay, b'nei Shabbat. Nekal bila, ya ilay, ilay, lecha dodi ligrat kalaya, yalalay, yalalay, b'nei Shabbat. Nekal bila, shamor v'zachor, b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Shem u'tiferet v'li techila, lecha dodi לקראת כלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה, ידי לך דודי, לקראת כלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת, לכו ונלכה, כי סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה יאללה פני שבת נקבל לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבל verse 5 התעוררי תתעורר קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבל לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבל
We rise together.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה מצולה תוך אמונה עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבלה ידיי לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבלה one more time לך דודי לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבלה.
We remain standing, page 28.
Together.
Seated together. Page 31. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch at Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Page 32.
Ali כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נסייר בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב
עמו ישראל. Page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לתוצפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40.
Mi chamach bailim Adonai, join us. Mi chamach bailim Adonai, mi chamach nedar bakodesh. Norah tehilot osefele, norah tehilot osefele. Malechutecha ra'u banecha, ukeyoya lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. ויאמרו זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. One more time on ya 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 la la ya ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la la ya la la ya la la ונאמר כי יפדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאה לו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Page 42.
Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. השיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, 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 לשלום. והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים, לחיים, לשלום, 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 לשלום. נה 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 na 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 הבורא סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
In a moment, we're going to rise and turn to page 46. And after this opening meditation, we'll move into silence through page 64. And you can either pray the traditional words on your page or the words of your heart. So together we rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן.
Move our attention to page 253 as we have the opportunity to offer a mishaberach for those in need of healing, whether it's short-term illness or long-term illness, whatever that illness is. And I'm sure in our hearts we know lots of people that are in need of that healing. Page 253. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. I ask for you to add names out loud if you would like to, and for those on Zoom, please put the names in the chat. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen. Avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. So, I don't know about you, but I had a lot of trouble watching the news the past couple days. Not necessarily because of everything about COVID. I'm used to that. In fact, I look for that on the news because I want to see what's happening. And Ayelet makes fun of me that she calls me an amateur epidemiologist, like we all are, I think. But it really dealt with, I was having trouble with the way that we were dealing with the legacy of January 6th, of the insurrection, of the storming of the Capitol. And the truth is, there's really actually only two ways that you can watch the news besides local news, which I might be the youngest person to watch the evening news in United States, probably. I loved the 6:30 news. But you have an option between watching either Fox News or watching MSNBC or CNN. And what I found is that they had completely different ways of covering the insurrection. One way was to basically ignore it, to downplay it, to say that it didn't matter. The other way, which is just as insidious, is to build it up, to make it something so big, so talked about, so scary, so angering, that you couldn't help but turn away. In a way, it was the exploitation of tragedy rather than the ignoring of it. And I struggled with that as I was watching it, because I don't know what the future of 1/6 is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be like 9/11, that it still looms large 20 years later, or if it's going to be like 1812, when the British made it their way all the way up to the White House only to burn it, of which we never, ever talk about. Will the insurrection be something forgotten, or will it be something embraced? Will it be something that leaves a legacy and a lesson, a mark, or it will be something that becomes a footnote in history? Depending on who you watch, there's a definite answer to that question. But I'm not sure whether either approach is actually the right way. Should it dominate its legacy, your life, the airways? Should it be the only thing you talk about, not just in this week, but really throughout the whole year since? Or should it be something that you never speak of? Something that you push under the rug, something that you ignore? Well, I've been thinking about that in light of the fact that Jews are actually pretty good at talking about bad stuff. We're pretty good at talking about tragedy. And whether we're talking about the legacy of being slaves in Egypt, which comes up in this week's Torah portion, or whether we're talking about the legacy of the destruction of the first or the second temple, or whether we talk about the Holocaust, Jews understand what it means to live with a bad thing, to live with a tragedy, but not to let it own your whole identity, or not to let it be pushed completely away. And I want to use the legacy of Egypt as a microcosm to talk about kind of how Jews do think about this. Because I think it's informative in the way that we can utilize tragedy to learn something from, to move forward from, to become a part of us, without letting us so drag us down and so fill up the space around us that we have no room for anything else. So you may not realize it, but there are 3 key moments in a Jewish year when we remember the legacy of Egypt. The first moment, of course, is Passover. Now, why do we remember it then? It's because it's the actual anniversary of Egypt. It's the day, the first night of Passover is actually the day when the angel of death, in this week's Torah portion, passed over the Jewish houses and brought the 10th plague on to the Egyptians. And the end of Passover is actually when we truly are free. We leave Egypt, we wander in the desert for a little while, we end up on the 7th day of Passover at the shores of the Red Sea. And it's there that it parts, it's there that we cross, and it's there that finally we reach the wilderness and are no longer slaves to Pharaoh. In a way, it's the anniversary. It's 9/11. It's 1/6. It's the time of the year that you cannot avoid. And in doing so, we organically reach it and we organically process it, and it becomes the most acute of the ways in which we remember. The other 2 are footnotes to this one. And so anniversaries are important, and anniversaries cannot be forgotten. But the second is no less important, which is where we are right now. It's an accident of history that we begin reading the Torah book by book, and there's 54 Torah portions throughout the course of the year, leaving room. Some of them are doubled. We leave room for when we've got a leap year like this one, and we add an extra month. 54 portions every single year. And it's an accident of history that we begin in the fall with Simchat Torah. You may not realize it, but there were big debates in the ancient world about exactly how to read Torah and where to read Torah. This one-year cycle that we've come used to was actually the minority view. In Babylonia, they actually used to read it every 3 years, all the way around. It would take 3 years to make it through, which made services significantly shorter, by the way. But the reason why we hit it in the winter, exactly now, why we read in this week's Torah portion about the end of the plagues and in next week's Torah portion about leaving Egypt, just happens to be we started the book in the fall. There is no rhyme, there is no reason, but because it's part of our story, we organically reach it every year. And when we do, we are forced to process it. Not because it means something to the cosmos, not because it means something to the calendar, but because it has a place in the general narrative. We understand it in the context, not of time, but of people. We understand it in a line from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph to Moses, and then eventually to his death, which happens again in the fall. So that's the second. But then, of course, there's the third. Because tonight we sang with gusto, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, O God? And every single time we pray, we are meant to remember, Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, remember the exodus from Egypt. But it doesn't loom so large. It doesn't become the focus of our Torah portion like it does this week. And it doesn't become the focus of a whole week of practice, giving up bread, getting together with family for seders that go into the night. Instead, we nod to it. It becomes a theme alongside the theme of the wonder of creation, which is one of the prayers we did tonight, or the amazingness of God's love for us in giving us the Torah, another theme for tonight, or in processing the fears that come with the nighttime and what dangers might lurk and asking God to protect us, which is another theme. It becomes one of the many pieces of what it means to live a holistic Jewish life. So why do I bring this up? Because I would say that the portfolio of memory is diversified for us with major tragedies. And the truth is, we do this with the Holocaust. We do this with the destructions of the temple. We do this with any major problem in Jewish history. And we understand that although it comes from time to time, it doesn't loom so large in our psyche that we let it dominate. On a random Shabbat in the summer, Yetziat Mitzrayim matters, but it matters this much. And then we get around to reading it in the Torah portion, and it matters for a few weeks. But the truth is, there's a lot of other things that matter in our service. And then suddenly we drink it in the air in the spring, and it matters so much more. The way to remember tragedy is not to let it dominate so much that, for example, we make Passover all year long. Instead, it's to allow ourselves different avenues to mourn, different avenues to celebrate, different avenues to remember. And in doing so, we do it in a nuanced and a subtle way. We call on it when the time needs it, and we nod to it when we do. And so, I don't know, as I said before, what the legacy of 1/6 will be. But what I do know is that we need to begin to move to a kind of remembrance that is like the remembrance of Egypt. Allowing ourselves, when we do reach it, if it matters 20 years from now, to feel it acutely on these days, but then to let it be a lesson that from time to time dwells in the background, that we call on, that we see, that we grow from, but that doesn't become the focus of our identity. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to rise together, page 282, for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit,
Shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama. Shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegoralenu kechol hamonam. V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 287.
V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
We take a moment in our service to think of those who we've loved and who we've lost. This Shabbat, we remember the following individuals for whom we are observing yard sites. And it's interesting as I look at this list, there are certain kind of weeks that stand out. You see these yard sites and you remember, now that I've been here for almost 4 years, that there are certain weeks that are tougher than others. And so there's a number of names on here that you'll recognize even among the yard sites of people who died only last year or 2 years ago. And for you, I know that like I talked about with Yetziat Mitzrayim, with leaving Egypt, mourning can be the same thing. The most acute, the Passover for you is now. But there are little things that remind you of them all the time. And sometimes the cycle of the year continues and a birthday or an anniversary comes around. And those are things that you pay attention to too, just as you pay attention to the Exodus and the life cycle. And so we recall the following names: Jason Adelman, Elsie Berlin, Rhoda Baez, Jane Breslau, Anna Doncor, Nathan Daniels, Rosalind Egan, Edna Fine, Ken Fischetti, Greta Friedman, Lillian Ginsberg, Floyd Gold, Henry Goldberg, Jake Goldberg, Sadie Hodis Gould, Charles Gruber, Horace Guthman, William Hillowitz, Herbert Holtzman, Frida Huberman, Gloria Isaac Berlin, Gussie Jasic, Judy Kopp, Pauline Korn, Carol Lane, Audrey Levine Thalsheimer, Anise Michelson, Paul Nagorny, Rose Nathanson, Joseph Nelson, Nina Paskoff, Israel Rubin, Bernard Schwartz, Sam Siegel, Shirley Snyder, Gordon Spencer, William Stein, Jerry Sorrell, Anna Sweetwood, George Taylor Benedict, Loretta Yanow Fisher, and Solomon Ziff. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, we remember our member Arlene Steyer. We remember Arnold Block, our member and past president, husband of Leslie Block. We remember Keith Taylor, cousin of Irene Sherman, and Beverly Saccarow, aunt of Jennifer Cohen. And we announce a death, one that you might have seen in your email today, of Sue Nussbaum, mother of Jody, mother-in-law of Kenny. And we wish your family condolences. We're going to be observing Shiva for Sue on Sunday and Monday. There is a more memorial-type service happening Sunday night and a more traditional Shiva happening on Monday. Both of them are virtual, and both of them are at 7 p.m. And if you want to visit with Jody and Kenny, you can be in touch with them. They're taking visitors a few at a time in lieu of a kind of full Shiva in their home. That way you can give your condolences and offer love to them too. And so we're going to turn to page 294. And I'll invite you to say other names of people that you might have forgotten or that might not have been on this list, people who you're in your 1-year period of mourning for, and to put those into the chat as well if you have them. So for all those names said, all those that remain in our hearts, and Tucker, I'm realizing you're here too, and so we offer our condolence to you as well. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach yiratei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yom echon uv'chayed l'chol Beit Yisrael, b'hagala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasem, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'rechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Please be seated. So a few announcements. The first is tomorrow's schedule. So 8:30 a.m. we've got our Torah study. And then at 10 a.m. there is the congregational service, which will be led by Ronnie Pressman. And that's going to be in the chapel area for any congregants who want to join or kind of our regular Saturday morning service. But I would be remiss if I didn't wish congratulations to two of our students who are becoming bar and bat mitzvah this weekend. And so to Abby and to Cole, who will become b'nai mitzvah at 9:30 and 11:30 respectively, we wish congratulations to you, and we can't wait to celebrate you tomorrow. In addition to that, a few other announcements of great stuff going on. The first is next weekend. Services are going to be at 7 o'clock, not at 6:30.
What time are services going to be on Friday night, Rabbi?
7 o'clock. Now, the reason that's happening is because what original plan was we were going to have services, and then we were going to have cocktails and dinner with this amazing jazz combo led by Zach Adelman, who is an alumni of our congregation, and his parents are very active here, Beth and Bob.
And he's also
And-
like a Grammy winner.
Yes, he's incredible.
Just that small little thing, too.
And because of Omicron, we are not doing the cocktails and the food piece, but we're doing both other pieces of the night, which means we're starting a little bit later to give you a chance to fill up your bellies before you get here.
That's right. We're going to drink in the music
Yes.
and eat the melody.
So we've got a jazz service, and then afterwards, a jazz concert. And so I hope that you'll stay, and hopefully you've come full and ready to party on Friday night.
Indeed. Please come and join us. And we're not going to let this pandemic not let us celebrate all that we have to be so grateful for. So glad that we're able to still be doing this, right, as much as we can. I can't forget that.
Absolutely. And so look, we've got a lot of other great stuff happening over the course of the next few weeks, and hopefully you can join us for any or all of it. And so with that, the Shabbaton as well, which I'll give a plug to. So the end of the month, it's every year we gather teachers and students from all over the area to pray and to learn together. This year, the service is going to be in person, but the actual classes themselves are going to be virtual. That way it'll allow more people to come and more people to participate, and I hope you'll join us. I am teaching a really esoteric and weird topic, so you can feel free to join me for that too.
Cool.
Yep, so
Shall we end our tefillah, Rabbi?
let's do it.
Okay, we're going to go to page 321, or you can look right at the screen. Feels right to remind ourselves that we are held by a mystery beyond what we see. We are held, we are held, we are held.
Adonai li
Velo
ira, me'im Adonai li
velo ira.
my
Bi ado avkid rupi.
my spirit
Eishan bi aira. Ve'inochi beviati.
not fear.
Adonai li velo ira. Ve'inochi beviati. Adonai li velo ira. Make sure to wish somebody a Shabbat Shalom, either virtually or in person. Shabbat Shalom.